you've bungee jumped, you've swum with sharks, stripped naked for the real full Monty. All of these things are to build a common denominator between you and the people that you're trying to connect with at the time. Is there anything you wouldn't do? In our world today, given the news feed that we all suffer, do you think that what you do brings us some balance?
One great thing about my role is that I meet people face to face, and I travel the country meeting people in all situations, different socioeconomic groups, different interest levels. There are so many interesting stories out there, and if you give people enough time in front of the mic, you'll find it.
Sam Mack, welcome to Straight Talk, mate.
Thanks, Mark. Pleasure to be on.
Now, we were talking pre-show, just about, I was sort of having a whinge because I love going on the morning show with the you guys, Sunrise, and I've been going on for many, many years now. It's a hassle for me to get down there, and I was having a whinge, and then I thought to myself, my God, you're always out on location. You're never there. In fact, you have to travel a real long way to get to where you have to get to.
Yeah, on the rare mornings that we're at the studios, that's a sleep-in for me because it's 20 minutes from my house. So I'd absolutely take that any day of the week
Totally.
if I could get it.
I can't whinge. So I would like to go back a little bit. So Mac stands for?
Macmillan.
Okay. Is Sam Mack something you grew up with as a name?
Around the soccer club, Sammy Mack used to be the name that everyone would call me. And my dad's also a Sam Macmillan, so he was Sammy Mack Senior. But I had a radio producer when I just started out in radio in Adelaide, and he said, yeah, Macmillan, too many syllables, mate. So that tells you a lot about the respect he had for the audience at the radio station at that time. He said, yeah, we got to shorten it. Sammy Mack or Sam Mack, that's better.
Well, he's right. Because, it's funny, if you're writing... If you're writing some, composing something like a letter or an email or something like that, and you have to put on Sam Macmillan, I often stop and think to myself: is it M-A-C-M-I-A-A-N or is it M-A-M-C?
Yeah,
M-I-A-A-N, and it's actually a punish. So Sam Mack is.
I'll pass that on to my parents.
Sam
Thanks,
Mack
Mark.
is perfect. I get it. You just take me back to Adelaide. I mean, you talk about soccer or footy. You're talking about
soccer, as in the world game.
Yeah, okay. Coming from Adelaide, you've got to be careful saying things like that, especially with Koshy, who would have been on your case. Because
Don't get me wrong, I love AFL as well.
He's the president of which club?
Port Adelaide. The
right.
rivals of my club, the Adelaide Crows.
Right, you're the Crows.
We've won twice as many premierships as them. Not that it's a competition.
No, it is a competition. Everybody's like, I'm on the board of the Roosters, and all we ever talk about is our neighbours, Souths. We're always sort of competing about how many grand finals. And by the way, we're competing as to what year we both started.
Yeah.
And we both argue who's been in the longest, and it is the Roosters, by the way. We have been there the longest. So, but just take me back. Adelaide, whereabouts in Adelaide did you grow up? Which
Parafield Gardens.
Where's that?
So that's the northern suburbs of Adelaide, 25 minutes out of the city.
Is that up in the hills?
Not quite, but Tea Tree Gully, where my sister lives, is maybe 10, 15 minutes. That's the start of the hills, so not too far from the hills.
So your parents obviously born there?
My parents are Irish. So born in Ireland.
Yeah, Macmillan.
Met in Australia.
Yep.
But like a lot of European settlers wanted to go where it was affordable to live. A lot of Irish people were going to Adelaide at the time, and they went there, and they've never really left.
And how many kids in the family?
Just myself and my sister, Paula.
That's pretty unusual for an Irish family.
Yeah.
Are they Protestants?
Well, we don't talk about religion. And in fact, it's interesting you bring that up. That's part of why they left Ireland.
Right.
So they left around the time of the Troubles.
So we're talking about Belfast, or we're talking about
Northern Ireland.
Dublin. Okay.
Right in the thick of it. So they left around the time of the Troubles, where car bombs, stabbings, really not a nice place to be. And my parents met in Adelaide, but like I say, a lot of Irish people were just getting out. And my grandma, my dad's mum, said to my dad, you're going to Australia, next week. He didn't know anything about Australia. This is pre-Google. He couldn't Google it. He didn't know what was going on. He just said, okay. He was on a ship for a few weeks, and then he lands in Australia. He's got hair down to his arse. He's got no real qualifications, and he had to make it work from there. He was only around 17.
And your mum's also Irish?
Mum's also Irish.
So they happened to meet in Adelaide?
Yeah.
That's pretty mad.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, your background, Bouris.
Irish and Greek.
Yeah. So you go to Melbourne, all the Greeks stick together, right?
Yeah.
Well, they did back in those days. All the Irish stick together because they want that slice of home, that familiarity. So it was great on a social level for them to hang out with people from Ireland. They could share their stories of which part they were from, what troubles, why they left Ireland. And And it was a bit of a sore point, understandably. I remember as a kid chatting to my parents about, like, what's this IRA thing? What's Catholic Protestant troubles? Like, I was interested in it, but it was too raw. Like, they didn't really want to talk about it. And my dad would always say the same phrase, which is, we left those troubles behind. We moved to Australia for a new life, for a better life, to get away from all of that. And I think that's why they didn't go back for so many years. And one of the best things that I've ever done was surprise them for Christmas a few years back with a trip to Ireland, because they don't have a lot of money. They're not big travellers. And I feel a bit of inherent guilt because I travel so much. I live in Sydney. I don't see them as much as I'd like to. I miss a lot of birthdays, family, my parents celebrating engagements. I miss a lot of those things. So it was really important to me that I made that happen. And I surprised them over there as well by taking my sister. So we had a family holiday in Ireland.
Like a pilgrimage.
And it was one of the best things I've ever done. It was really special.
So you went into Belfast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a pretty mad place. It's you can sort of see how it would have been a very heavy scene during the Troubles.
Definitely. And I think for a lot of people, it's still raw because, you've got people there who lost their grandparents, who lost their parents, or who know people who were embroiled in that warfare, essentially. So, but we had a really fun, happy holiday, and it was mainly happy memories. I wanted them to experience the best, and I wanted them to share a little bit of what they grew up with. And, my dad taking me to where he used to live and saying I used to kick a soccer ball against this wall every day for 10 years. Like that, they were the moments that I wanted. My mum saying, that's the school I went to just down there. We used to meet at that big clock. They're the moments that I was hoping to get out of it, and we got them. And yeah, one of the best things I've ever done.
Your parents' impact on you, do you feel like a sense of debt towards them?
Yeah.
For what they've given you?
Yeah, I do. And I feel, I mentioned it before, a little bit of guilt.
Why guilt?
Because I miss a lot, because I'm not there. Something happens with mum, she's got to go to the doctor in the hospital for a day or two. I'm not there to visit face to face. I'm on FaceTime. And as you know, it's not the same. So don't get me wrong, like I have their blessing and they're proud of me and they wanted me to chase what I wanted to do, and the type of career that I've, paid my way through to could not have been done really in Adelaide. I wanted to go to the top of the stack, which was Melbourne or Sydney in media. Apologies to anyone else in media in other cities. They're also great jobs. But what I wanted to do, I needed to push a bit further and go to those bigger markets, I guess you'd call it. So yeah, they never put that on me, but I put that on myself. I feel that.
We sort of can grow up with Irish guilt, though. I know what it's like. My mum was like that. Like, is that something real for you? And guilt comes in lots of forms, and it also actually shapes the way you tend to be, not you in particular, but people can tend to be more generous towards others too, because it's nearly, it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Type deal.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, that shouldn't be the only reason.
No.
But it's a nice little sweetener, isn't it?
Yeah.
If that's helping you go to sleep at night, then nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but it is a thing in Ireland, whether it's from the north of Ireland, from Northern Ireland, or whether it's from the Republic of Ireland, which is the bigger part. Mm-hmm. It is a thing. Whether you're Catholic or Protestant, it is a thing over there.
Yeah.
Irish, no. And they've all got sayings about this stuff, like about having tickets on yourself, for example, and making sure that you get out of the wind. Otherwise, all the tickets are going to blow off, all those sorts of things. Yeah. These are things that's real. And when you're a kid, a little kid, especially, and you're growing up, and you've got your mum telling you something, particularly if your mum, if you're close to your mum, if you've got your mum telling you something, you actually, it does form neural pathways, I think.
Yes.
That stay with us forever.
Yeah.
And they're not bad neural pathways. So therefore, there's no need to go and change them, but these things stay with you forever.
I think so. I mean, they're really simple in the scheme of things, but you can't underplay the importance of them. Little things like gratitude, like using manners. Like these are big things that I've got from my mum in particular, but my dad as well in other areas. And I guess an important part, and this is what's great about my job, because I meet a lot of people, on an average morning, I probably meet about 100 people, and I travel the country meeting people in all situations, different socioeconomic groups, different interest levels. And I guess something particularly from mum is to treat everyone with the same level of kindness and respect, and you never really know what they're going through. And that's such a great life lesson for anybody, no matter what you do, no matter what your profession, no matter where you live. If that's your kind of key pillar, then you're on a good start, I think.
Did you have a wall that you kicked a soccer ball up against in Adelaide?
Windows, unfortunately, for my parents.
Oh, God, insurance policy.
Yeah, I'd kick a soccer ball anywhere. I loved it. It was my sport. It was my obsession. And, you know, I had dreams of playing for Manchester United.
Wow. That's a big dream, though.
Yeah, I haven't given up on it.
Yeah, there's time. You're only young. But are you a big dreamer?
Yeah. Yeah, and that I think I got more from Dad.
Right.
So I guess you could call it being a dreamer, or you could call it possibly having a unhealthy level of self-confidence. You know,
Really reckless?
Yeah, yeah. Dad's a go-getter. And Dad's someone who'll watch a video of Billy Joel in concert and see him playing Piano Man and go, oh, let's go to the piano. I'll play that. And think he can play it just like Billy Joel. Or, you know, Dad and I will be sitting watching Manchester United and he'll be like, Gary Neville, terrible right back. I reckon I could do a better job. He has this level of belief, which some would say is, you know, a little bit not in line with ability level or talent to back it up. But it's a really nice, certainly for what I do, it's a really nice starting point to, and I guess it's come through in what I've done, which is leaving Adelaide, wanting to go to take on the best. And so it's not completely misguided, and I don't see it as a negative quality, but I guess I'm looking at it through more of an even assessment at the moment, you know, with where I'm at in my career. But I love that I've got that from Dad, and I love that I've got the manners, the treating people with kindness, you know, from Mum.
It's a funny thing, you know, I've observed it, but it's a funny thing in Irish families, where both parties are Irish, is that the mum is sort of keeping you within your lane, making sure you stay in your lane, and like things like manners and all that sort of stuff. But also, don't get ahead of yourself. That sort of stuff. And, you know, don't be up yourself and all that sort of. And they're pretty direct. They don't muck around.
No.
And the dads, they would get out in the pub, have a beer.
Yeah.
They watch the footy, or play an instrument, or tell a story, or
well, Dad does all of those
have
things.
a yarn.
Yep, plays guitar.
Yep.
You know, was in a cover band, loves to tell a joke, loves a beer. He's all of those things. So, in many respects, I feel that I've cherry-picked the best parts of each parent, which I think every kid hopes that they can do, and, you know, channel it into what I do.
Your parents are both married still?
Yes.
And they're still alive?
Yeah.
And how do they view your business life? What do you think? What do they say to you?
I still don't think they truly understand all of it as much as I try to explain it, the relentlessness of it.
You mean the effort?
Yeah, I guess it's just the pace of it. You know, I'll be doing the show in Adelaide, and sometimes, and again, this is coming back to the guilt thing, sometimes I'll forget to tell them, and they'll turn on the TV and there's something at the bottom of Sunrise, Sam Mack is in Adelaide. And I'll get a message from Mum and Dad going,
Why don't you call in?
Oh, thanks for the heads up, you know.
Well, that's a pretty interesting thing. Let's go through that for a second here, because I know how that works. You're on TV for, I don't know, on any one morning, like in aggregate, maybe 15 minutes. Max.
No, that 35 minutes.
35 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
So that's maybe 7-8 segments?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I'm watching TV, or Mum and Dad are watching TV, and they see one segment, and they see you for a couple of minutes, okay? And then and that's on Monday morning, but they don't realise all the stuff, all the peddling underneath the water, whatever the words, under the water, is that it takes a lot to prepare that little package. Like you've got to travel somewhere.
Yeah.
And you've got to maybe stay overnight because you've got to be there before the next morning.
That's
you
right.
You can't get up in the morning and go because you've got to be there
Exactly.
before the planes aren't even leaving when you're getting ready. Then you've got to talk to your production crew. Let's just take me through that process. What's that sort of look like? Let's pick a, relatively speaking, remote place of Australia. Let's say you're going to Cairns.
Yep.
So what does that look like?
Well, it really depends where we are the day before and where we are the day after. So there's no normal week in this role. You know, for example, this week I'm going to Perth, and we'll be in Perth for 2 nights. Long way to go for 2 nights for 2 shows, but important for us to get to Perth because it's been a while. Now, we're not just in Perth, we're at Rottnest Island. So anyone who knows Perth knows that you don't just land in Perth and then you've actually got to drive to the ferry spot, get on the ferry, stay the night on Rottnest Island, do the show. Time difference means you're doing the show at around 3 a.m. local time.
Especially at the moment, it's 3 hours difference.
Yep. Difficult to get guests. Hey, can you come down for a chat at 4:15? Good luck.
Yeah. Especially if it's at Rottnest.
Yeah, it's tricky.
You have to pull them off onto the boats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Take your quokka selfie and get out.
Yeah.
But it's you know, the other week we did a week on the road with New South Wales Tourism, so a different part of New South Wales, and you're driving every day. Last week we did 4 cities in 4 days. So my point being, there's no set week, but what it looks like is, yes, we travel the day before because you can't travel in the morning. Normally you want to get in the afternoon, have an early dinner, get to bed by 8:30.
How many is in the group?
4 of us.
4 of you in the
Small
group.
team, producer, human emoji, who's produced me from day one. Then you've got a cameraman and a link operator, and they kind of rotate. So small team. I like that. Less politics, less meetings. So it means you get there, you sleep, you do the show, then often you're straight to the airport, or you'll drive somewhere to get ready for the next day's locations.
So who's actually saying, though, what determines why should you go to Perth? Is it your audience? And who sits down and works out that schedule?
Combination of the executive producers of the show and my producer, and I'll certainly throw in ideas or say, hey, I'm getting a few messages on social media, you know, people in Perth saying, what's going on? You haven't been here for 4 months, and they're often right.
Really?
People pay much more attention than you'd think. Yeah. And we know that it's been a long time since a Perth trip, and I used to live in Perth, so I've got friends over there that are like, hey, we haven't caught up since you become a dad, all of this kind of thing, right? So you just know. And like one thing I love about my job is it really helps me have a national view, you know, for sports, for just what living is like in each city, what property prices are doing in each city. I enjoy that part of the job because I'm interested in it, and I have a connection to every city through my job. But on a higher level, I'm born and bred in Adelaide. I've lived in Perth for 3 years. I'm in Melbourne every second week. My partner's from Melbourne. We visit the grandparents, you know, her parents. So I'm in Melbourne a lot. I live in Sydney these days. So I'm quite a national person in that regard, and I love that about it because each city has their great selling points.
But is there an audience factor in this? Like you said, the audience sent you messages to say you haven't been over for a while. Like, that's mad. It's important for Channel 7 to show that they can take the time or be bothered to send Sam Mack to, let's say, Perth to do a show.
Absolutely. 100%. And
so they should get it, do they?
So they should. If I was turning on my TV every morning and the presenters were going to every city except mine, I would be like, oh, what else is on? So yeah, it's crucial that we go. These are big cities, and every city, as you would know, having traveled a lot, has its own nuance, and it has, you know, the talking points. And if you ignore that, then I think it might not happen instantly, but in time, your numbers, your ratings will be affected by that. But it shouldn't just be about ratings. I know that's a big determining factor, but it should be about the ethos of the show. We're a national show, so we should be going to all of those cities.
What is the ethos of the show? Is that get shared amongst all the talent on the show in the morning? Do you all share the same discussion about what is the ethos of this show? What are we really trying to do here?
I feel it's a conversation that we should have more often, but having said that, I feel that we all know, you know, that if people are going to watch, let's say your average viewer only watches 30 minutes of Sunrise in the morning in between getting their kids ready for school or getting ready for work or whatever it might be, we want them to get the biggest news of the day. So 5 or 6 minutes on what are the big news stories, what do you need to know? You need them to get the weather. That's where I come in. You need them ideally to get something to smile about, some sort of entertainment, whether it's music or whether it's a fun interview, maybe even something to cry about. You know, maybe it's a heavier story, but it's got some heart to it. If you can get all of those things in 30 minutes, then I think you're on the right track, because that will then become part of people's routine. And rather than having to flick around for each of those things individually, they've got it all in the one spot.
So clearly weather's one part of the information package, but where do you fit into in those other things, like let's call it the entertainment side? Where do you see yourself fitting into the entertainment part of the ethos of the show, of Sunrise?
Well, I feel you summed it up when you said light entertainment. I feel like that's kind of my role. Some morning it's very light, almost lacking. But one great thing about my role is that I meet people face to face. So I'm at their cricket club. I'm at their schools, you know.
And they love it.
I'm at their retirement village. They love it. And one interesting thing I've found is the further we go out from the capital cities, the more they love it. So if you go out to the burbs, say 45 minutes, an hour out of any city, they're so excited that you're giving them that moment of recognition. And I love that because we feed off that energy. So the fact that I'm meeting people face to face and having a chat with them in their lounge room or living room is quite rare for TV, because a lot of the time people on TV stay in the TV. They're in the studio, they're behind glass, security, lights, whatever. I'm not. And I love that about the role. I mean, it comes with its challenges as well, because some mornings it can be a bit overwhelming, but I love that I get to chat face to face.
you talk to kids footy clubs or cricket clubs or
Yeah.
whatever it is. You talk to older people at maybe nursing homes, etc.
Well,
like that.
this morning
Yeah.
we were at a gymnastics club in Smeaton Grange, which
Yep.
is about an hour southwest Sydney. Tomorrow morning, I'm at a retirement village in North Parramatta. So that's a perfect summary of 2 days in sunrise weather, literally both ends of the scale.
You've got to be fairly flamboyant's probably not the word. You've got to be flexible because not everybody can talk to kids and then older people, older generation at the same time. Not everybody can deal with animals, dogs. There might be a sort of an Easter show thing going on, like it could be the pet farm or something.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do all those things, but you seem to be able to do them all. What is it in your personality? Is it performance or is it actual genuineness? I mean, I know you're going to say it's genuine, but I mean, is there much performance in it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
There is performance. I kind of see it as it's a heightened version of yourself. I mean, the one thing working for me is that I'm naturally interested in people. And if someone's passionate about something, I feel that's contagious in a good way. And I'll happily point the mic at them and get them talking. And then I'm inquisitive. So I want to ask, I've got lots of questions. I don't need to write down 15 questions before I go there. If someone tells me that they have 6 chickens, instantly I want to know, what are they called? What sort of life are they going to lead? How are the eggs going? Which one's your favorite? I've got questions, right? So that just naturally comes to me and I love that about it. And the more you keep digging, you'll find gold. I think that's one thing that I've found in this role is that there are so many interesting stories out there. And if you give people enough time in front of the mic, you'll find it. Yeah, you'll find it.
They love to talk. I mean, it's funny, you're not really you are the weather guy. I mean, you do the weather. I get it. But you really are the light entertainment part of the show. I mean, I know that on the show, there's laughter and there's, frivolous moments, etc. But you bring in sort of the fundamentals into the show. Like, as you're talking to older people, retirement people, you're talking to kids at a gymnastics class or someone raising chickens, could be at the Easter show. You bring that sort of levity. And do you think that in our world today, given the news feed that we all suffer, and I don't mean through Channel 7 or 9, I'm just saying the news feed, we all suffer on everything. Like we just pick up our phone, but it's just news feed, constant. And it does, and it's indiscriminate. It's about, can go from Afghanistan, Kabul to, New York to Donald Trump to, back over to, Sunak, Rishi Sunak, whoever. It just moves around all the time. And it's constant. Do you think that what you do brings us some balance?
Yes. I think it's important. It's one of the things I love about that role. I think COVID was a perfect example. I remember at the start of COVID when we were all working it out together, right? And we were like, okay, this is serious. This is going to affect things. The two things that are the main parts of my role, which is travel and groups of people, were instantly taken off the table. So my producer, Sean, the human emoji, and I, we decided straight away, we're not going to talk about COVID. And we had to get that approved by producers. We said, the news, and that's the other thing about when you consume news, whether it's on your phone or whether it's radio, podcast, or whether it's TV, if it's a heavy story, I think you might not realize it, but you'll feel it. If there's a bus crash and 23 people have died, you don't just go, oh, well, next channel, or oh, I'm off to work. Like you feel it because you're a human being, right? So that's why I might be running around like a fool and trying to do a helicopter maneuver at a kid's gymnastic class, but you need it. It's like that breath of relief and like the world's not all bad. Particularly a lot of kids watch the show. So we don't want the kids who, kids are very perceptive and are seeing more than we think they are. I'm learning that now as a dad of a 1-year-old, but they see and they listen and they watch and they feel, right? So if all the news for 7 minutes is really depressing, horrific, sad, they can feel their parents' body language. They can see the parents' eyes or hear the sighs. So it's important that we give them, it's okay to laugh now. This is your permission to act like a goose, like the weatherman. That's great. I'm happy to be the dancing clown when required.
So sort of
there's value in that, I guess is my point.
Yeah, 100%. So self-deprecating really is an Irish way of humour.
Yeah.
It's endemic in the Irish system of humour. Yeah. Basically just take the piss out of yourself.
Yeah.
And who cares?
Yeah.
If I get a laugh, That's all that
And
matters.
invite other people to take the piss out of you too.
Totally.
You know,
And
I had a lady at the gymnastics class this morning who said my posture was a 2 out of 10. You know, I was like, great. I love it when they get stuck into me because I know the hosts will enjoy that. And like I say, I'm happy to be the fall guy. I'm happy to have the joke can be on me as long as there is a joke and as long as there's something to smile about.
Well, can you take me on beyond that? So, like, you're happy to do it. And most of us say, oh, fuck that. Like, why would I want that to happen to me? But what's the greater good that you're creating?
Because, like I was saying before, I meet people face to face and I've had so many interactions with, to me, complete strangers, but I'm not a complete stranger to them, who have, you know, a prime example was a police officer who came up to me in Geelong a couple of years ago and said, Sam, I don't want to be on camera. I just want to let you know that I've been out of the force for 10 years. I have PTSD, but your segments have given me something to smile about. And I've watched every segment of yours from 5:40 in the morning. He said, it's not always necessarily the things you're saying. It's just the energy that you bring and the places that you show and the way that you approach things just reminds me to, you know, not take myself too seriously and try to have a good day. And that is like gold to me. That keeps me going for another year. And I have enough of those, whether it's people writing to me on social media or coming up to me face to face and saying, look, I want you to meet my kids. Our family loves you. And a lot of the time they don't want to be on TV. They just want to express to me, hey, what you're doing means something to our family. And that's the biggest buzz.
Is that a form of, because I sort of get it myself a little bit, not to the same level, but, or the same extent either, but I get a lot of people thanking me for the various shows I put on.
Absolutely.
But I often think to myself, Mark, is that you needing some self-affirmation about what you do in the world and that what you do is meaningful? Because I was always taught, do something that's meaningful. It doesn't mean you got to change. You don't have to be Madame Curie and invent pasteurization or something like that. I mean, that would be meaningful too. But like, you don't have to win a Nobel Prize, but do things that are meaningful. And that was drummed into me as a kid growing up. Because that's who my parents admired.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think to myself, do I do these things that I do, irrespective of, you know, the occasional slap by the media for being who you are, just being well known, that is. Do I continue on to keep marching forward because I need to be affirmed that what I'm doing is the right thing and a good thing? Is that something you've ever thought through?
I haven't thought it through, but in hearing you chat about it now, we're both human beings, right? And we both have feelings. And
we want to be loved.
We want to be loved, but I feel like someone coming up to you and saying, you know, I loved you on Celebrity Apprentice or I love, you know, your tips you're giving me on interest rates, whatever. That's a nice thing to hear, right? It's not the only reason you do it, but it's a nice part of it. I feel like, and this is something that I've taken over the last few years in getting those types of, you know, interactions with people and having that feedback is like, I can then pass that on to someone else who I'm taking something from. So people should hear that they're doing something well more often. I think that sometimes we think, oh, they know that I'm proud of them or they know that I think they're doing a great job. They might not. And they might sometimes just hearing it is very powerful. Like telling my partner she's doing an amazing job as a mum. When I've told her that, I can tell that means something to her. Even though I know that and I feel like I'm showing it to her in other ways, sometimes verbalizing it, saying it is extremely powerful and maybe what they need on that particular day. So I love it when people, you know, pour their heart out and say, you know, your segments have helped me through this or my family loved that. Like that's, if you weren't feeling something out of that, then you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, because I don't think there's anything wrong with self-affirmation, but I often wonder about it. Like, is it a basic need of humans that we need to have some sort of affirmation? In other words, we have a purpose. We're valuable in society. It doesn't matter how valuable. You're not, as I said, I'm not talking about a Nobel Prize value. Just even if it's just a little bit of valuable, and you need to hear it. You need to be told by a third party. And it's interesting you said something about your partner. So can we just go there for a moment? Is that okay?
Cool.
So how long have you guys been together?
We've been together 3.5 years.
Yep. And you've just had a baby recently?
Yes.
More recently. How old's what do you got, a boy or a girl?
Girl. Her name's Margot and she just turned 1.
Great name, Margot. She's 1 year old. Yeah. Oh, she's going to get into that territory. She's probably crawling.
She's almost walking.
Yeah, she's standing but not.
Stumbling like me coming home from the pub.
Yeah, okay. When in a year's time should be causing you a problem. So, I remember I had 4 kids, and I remember I used to, the very first kid, I was saying, I wonder when he's going to crawl, I'm looking forward to him when he's walking. And then by the third one, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not looking forward to them by the time they're walking, because we open every bloody cupboard in the house. For years, I had latches on all my cupboards. It looked so shit. And there was like gates at stairways and like things like that. But eventually.
So that's what you're passing on about your parenting tip, is that it ruins the aesthetic of your house?
Totally. No, I used to walk past because the gate thing that you used to have at the top of the stairs would break down, or the little screw things that you used to have to screw into the thing. They'd make a dent on the side of the wood, and you have to sand it back and repaint it. I was just so happy once I could get all that shit out of the job.
Yeah,
but
it feels like you've really been triggered in this chat.
I have been very triggered, but it's a wonderful thing how much you're enjoying having Margot as a 1-year-old little girl.
Best thing that can ever happen to anyone, I feel. Obviously I'm at the very start of this crazy journey, but I think you were probably the same when you get through that first year of your firstborn.
It's a bit of a fog, isn't it?
Yeah. But there's also that sense of achievement. We've kept a human alive for a year, and it's have a drink with the mates and celebrate and bring the family round. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's challenging with the travel schedule.
I was going to say, how do you manage that?
As best we can. Work have been very understanding and as flexible as they can be, but the reality of my role is it's flying, it's driving. It's like we spoke about, a national show. I can't just be in Sydney every day. So I try to justify it and I guess be at peace with it by making it work for us when we can. For example, we took Margot on a work trip to Disneyland when she was only 6 months old. Kids fly.
She won't remember it.
Kids fly for free under 2. Yeah, she probably won't remember it, but we'll show her the photos and videos. I think that I try to look at it from this perspective. Your average person, average new parent, whether it's the mum or dad that's staying at home, often it's the mum staying at home, the dad's working, often that first year, but it changes. Say they work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. as standard hours. They're probably leaving home at 7:30, the commute. They're getting home at 6:30. So they only really see their little one on the weekends and maybe half an hour here and there. The days that I'm in Sydney, I get almost the whole day, and then my partner Beck can go to work. And so I try to look at it like through that lens. Otherwise, it would just be too upsetting. I'm missing so many moments.
Well, I can tell you now, like I never saw my kids because my kids grew up in a different era.
Yep.
But like it was normal for the father to work, all day. And if you had a second job, I worked 12, 13 hours a day, every day, 6 days a week. And the only time I saw my kids was at sport on Sundays at the rugby league. And, but I never got to take him anywhere, which in hindsight, I now regret. I wish I had known better. Wish I had known what you know, and what more modern parents know, this sort of stuff. And then those days you just relied on your partner, their mum, to bring them up and to do everything for them. And I don't remember ever changing nappies. Not because I didn't want to do it, but because, at night they were sleeping and the nappy, by the time they got up, I'd left.
Yep.
And by the time I got home, they're back in bed.
Yeah.
And I'd literally go into the cot or the bed and just have a look at them, like the sleep.
Right.
So I don't really, I might have probably changed nappies on a Sunday or something like that, but like I don't really remember doing too much of them. So that stuff's sacred. You can't go back in time. You can't say, and you might say, I'll get it with the second or third, but it doesn't matter. You missed out on the first.
Absolutely.
And there's periods that may treasure that stuff. That stuff's the most important. What I tend to do now is I try to make it up for them. And especially with my grandkids, I tend to go over the top with my grandkids, do things for them that I would never have done for my own kids. And my kids then remind me, hey, Dad, you would never have done maybe that growing up. What's wrong with you? And that probably is not the right thing to do. So this is a great time to treasure. I mean, especially if you've got a busy schedule.
I'm super aware of that, and it's my number one focus. So obviously we need an income, we need to work. So when I'm away working, justify it by, okay, I'm going to spend as much time as I can. I'm going to be completely present when I get home. When I walk in that door, we're on. I'm not going to relax and chill out on the couch and watch the footy. I'm helping. So to give my partner a break, but also I don't want to miss those. The thing that I didn't think about before becoming a dad was, I guess you call them mini milestones. I thought about the big ones like walking for the first time. I didn't think
birthday.
Yeah. I didn't think about hearing her laugh for the first time. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about when she learned how to point or when she learned how to clap with a song or now she knows where her tummy is. I didn't think about these, and they're almost every week. So any minute that I'm home, when I'm not sleeping, I'll be trying my best to get on that carpet with Margot, give Beck a bit of a break. But in a selfish way, to see these moments unfold, I absolutely love that part of it.
It's funny, it just reminded me of something. I remember when my first son was born, and my grandmother, who's Greek, was alive, and who's could not speak any English. And I remember one time I was over at her place in Maroubra, and my son was probably, he hadn't been christened. We were going to get him christened. We just waited a bit, I don't know why. But he was like maybe 3 or 4 months old. And he was smiling, or he was doing that with his, like a smile. He wasn't grimacing. It was a smile.
Yeah.
The only grimace or smile, one of the two. The whinge or smile. And my grandmother said, I said to her, look, he's smiling. Look, she said, no, he's not smiling. You haven't christened him yet. And I said, what do you mean? She said, that's not a smile. She said, that is him laughing at the devil. You have to go and get him christened. She said, I'll fix it up. So she went and got some whiskey and in a glass, and put her finger in the glass and put a drop of whiskey on the tip of her finger, and put it on his tongue, like an old Greek tradition thing, and she said he'll keep. What it turned out to be, he wasn't smiling because he didn't know what he was smiling at. He had a tummy ache, and he was just making a mouth movement that looked like he was smiling, and the whiskey actually somehow relaxed them a bit.
Really?
And took the pain away. And literally like 3 or 4 minutes after she did this smile went away. And she said, that'll drive the devil away until you go and get him christened, Mark. And I thought, shit, I better get him christened. So I went and got him christened really quick. It's funny, these old traditions. You just reminded me of something. And you're right. They're the little moments before you have a kid you never knew about.
Yeah.
And they're the little moments that really are the important moments.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember his first birthday, but I do remember that.
Yeah.
And
well, I think like a lot of people, when you become a parent for the first time, I mean, a few things happened for me.
Shock.
Yes, shock. We had a bit of time to prepare, but I think instantly it gave me a new level of appreciation for my parents, because I feel like when we're kids, everything's just there. Your dinner's just there. You don't know or think, nor should you. You're a kid, but you don't know that your parents might be going through some challenging financial times, or that they've had a really tough day at work and the last thing they want to do is make a big meal for you. That you don't know or care about that. So when I became a dad and sort of started to get into that groove, instantly I was like, wow, my parents did all of these things. They had all of these emotions. They had all of these feelings, and I was a little brat. I was a spoiled brat. So it made me appreciate them so much more. It made me appreciate my partner so much more, seeing her. And I guess a lot of dads would have seen this, when mum just clicks into mum mode. It's this magical thing that we would not stand a chance, but the strength that new mums and women,
endurance abilities are crazy.
Oh my goodness.
We're so pathetic.
Oh, so pathetic. It's embarrassing.
I don't want to use it as an excuse, because it might sound like I'm using it. I'm not. I am saying it's the truth.
Yeah.
We are so pathetic.
Yeah, but you can't use that as a cop-out anymore. You can say, I'm pathetic, so here's a list of 15 things that I'm going to do that's going to improve this week to make your life easier. Yeah. You have to. And, put it this way, little things that I notice, my partner, Beck, she'll make pasta for Margot for dinner. Great, fantastic. Makes the pasta, like boils it, whatever. And then she'll get the parmesan cheese out and she'll grate the parmesan cheese. This is for a baby. Now, the baby wouldn't know any difference if there was parmesan cheese on there or not, but she cares, and every day is grand final day for her. So if I'm in that house and when I've been away 3 nights and I come home, I'm going to grate that cheese because I've got to fit into that groove that I've missed out on.
You're going to measure up, mate.
Absolutely. And she's making me become better and making me push myself to kind of keep up, which is a gift for me, because that gift then becomes for Margot, who's going to have an amazing upbringing. So yeah, and I think that's a pretty standard thing. Mums just have these gears that we don't know about, and you only see them when you're in it, when you're in that day-to-day, when they're up at 2 a.m. and they've got the energy to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for the 15th time, but it's like they've sung it for the first time. So you can't help but be caught up and swept up in that. This is what it takes to be a great parent. So I need to match that level.
You become inspired.
Yeah.
It's funny, you should say, because last weekend, my son rings me. He said, Dad, can we come around your place, bring my grandson, George, and to have a swim? I said, I'm lucky to live near the beach. I said, yeah, no worries, because there's a parking spot there. And so I thought to myself, I better get George something to do, because, I'll buy him an ice cream, buy him a bag of chips, or get him some peanuts or something. I don't know. He's not allergic to peanuts. And so I text my son, and he writes back, says, Dad, it's all right. His wife, Siobhan, has organised, she's made him cookies No, actually, Siobhan texted me back and she said, no, I made him cookies. So they come along with the cookies and I thought, well, you idiot. Like, she's made cookies and he helped her make the cookies. So he was up there, doing the cookie thing. And then when he got to my place, he produced the cookies. He calls me Pop. He said, Pop, here's some cookies. They're healthy to eat. Not like chips. Straight up.
So he's teaching you now about better diet habits.
And I felt like inspired now because he's come to stay with me. They're having another baby in
great.
2 weeks.
Or so,
and he's going to come stay with me for a few days.
Yeah, awesome.
So I now thought, well, hang on, I got to lift my game now. I'm going to have to get a thing for him to stand on in the kitchen. I'm going to have to get him to help me make some dinner. He's going to have to make some cookies. He's going to, and it's got to be healthy. So like it's, the flours, whole milk flour, like the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So you're right. There's a lot of inspiration, even at my age, a lot of inspiration to be got from a modern parent, a good modern parent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just how you enjoy the kids, being a parent for the first time or being a grandparent for the first time for that matter. It's about what I'm always looking for inspiration. And to some extent, what you do in your job is inspiration for wherever you go. I mean, part of your interaction is inspiring people maybe to get up and you might go to a convalescent home, get up and do some exercise, or bring a companion dog in, for people to be inspired to touch the dog, pat him or her, and for them to feel better. Go to a kids thing, little kids in a country town who've never seen Sam Mack, who only see him on television, and they want to see Sam Mack being funny, clowning around, maybe wearing an outfit or something like that. And these are inspirational moments.
I hope
you
so.
must have, I don't know if you keep a log of these things, but you must have thousands and thousands of inspirational moments. Or do you just store some of them in your own memory?
Well, I wrote a book during COVID. Thanks for reading it as part of your research for today, Mark.
No problem. That's why I raised it. I did it as subtly as possible.
Could you tell me your top 25 moments from the book?
For the first 25 pages.
Yeah, we'll get to that at the end when you review the book for me.
I couldn't put it down.
Accidental Weatherman. You couldn't pick it up either. That was the problem. Accidental Weatherman was the name of the book because I kind of stumbled into the job and never set out to be a weatherman, never really had a particular interest in the weather, but I, became the weatherman. But really the book is about people and exactly what you're saying, the people that I've met, the places that I've been, that you take a little something from everywhere. It's not always a great thing, but you take a little something from everywhere. And
you mean you benefit for yourself, or you have in terms of memory?
You learn something. You have a great memory, a great interaction. You meet someone who you want to keep in contact with because you see something in someone. You become a bit of a mini expert on everything. You can talk about, you name like motor neuron disease. I've met multiple people with it. I've met their families. I've spoken about it. So you get these little snapshots of people's lives. And often my challenge is how do I tell their life story in 2 minutes, which is really tough, but an exciting challenge to kind of get to the key points as quick as you can, but also leave them some room to shine. I love that part of the job. And it's sometimes challenging when you got someone in your ear saying, wrap it up. The Prime Minister's about to be on. We got to go. That happens. But I do. I take those little nuggets from different places around the country and beyond.
Yeah. So you have met a lot of people. And there are some causes that you do prosecute like pretty rigidly, with a lot of energy. What are some of the things what are some of the things you're looking at and doing? And do you have a memory of who it was or where it was that inspired you to do that particular thing in terms of cause?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been an ambassador, a SAMbassador for Sydney Dogs and Cats Home for a number of years that basically rescue animals. So I've had a couple of rescue cats of my own. I love dogs as well, but just my travel and the houses that I was living at the time, it was cats. Sadly lost Coco, who was my cat for 13 years, rescue cat last year, which really was upsetting, on so many levels. Anyone who's lost a pet knows that feeling.
Is that the cat you took to the Logies?
Yeah, that's the cat I took to the. Yeah, it's a cat that I've got tattooed on my hip.
Really?
Yeah, and she was a cat that she had like a resting bitch face, so it's kind of funny on social media. People like Grumpy Cat, I guess. People enjoyed that and people followed her stories and journey. But through it all, we were raising awareness and raising money. And when she passed, I said, look, if if you ever laughed at, one of the Coco photos, or if you enjoyed some of our little adventures, could you please give $20, to Animal Rescue, because this is in her honor. And we raised $25,000 overnight.
Wow.
Which was really nice for me to kind of have that. It wasn't all in my mind. People were really invested and connected to her and to me, and they could tell that it was genuine, and I wanted to do anything to help this animal rescue place. And I love that people were on board with that. So that's definitely one of them.
Do you remember the moment where you were inspired to actually support a rescue shelter for animals?
Yeah, I remember.
Was it a segment?
No, it was just at a park, and a guy there had a rescue dog. And I think, like a lot of people, this is a while ago now, for some reason I just thought rescue, there's something wrong with them. I just had this perception of, they've got behavioural issues, or that was just how I viewed it. This is 10, 15 years ago. And then through doing segments, I kind of met, wow, there's all these amazing cats, amazing dogs, and like, what an awesome thing to share this. You don't go and have to pay a breeder. You don't have to do it like that. Go to the pet shop at Bondi. You don't need to do that. You can actually, these guys really need a home, and they're so excited to come home with you. So that's a big animal lover. So that was definitely one. I wear that for Are You OK Day. I've been an ambassador for Are You OK Day for over 10 years now. I lost a friend to his mental health battles in 2008. And I think that was pre Are You OK? That was probably, as you would know, around 2008, mental health conversations were nowhere near as prevalent as they are now, particularly amongst men. So that was a shock to the system. And that I was doing radio at the time. And I remember it took me about a year or so before I was comfortable to speak about it publicly. And I remember speaking about it on radio, and it was one of the toughest things I've ever done, because it was
speaking about the loss, or
speaking about him, speaking about Richard, his name is Richard Marsland, speaking about Richard, speaking about who he was, what he stood for, what he may have been going through, speaking about how it affected me, but also his family, his friends, that community, and then sort of leading into speaking about mental health more generally and things that I'd picked up in that, I guess, year of learning. So that's something that's very personal, very raw, and I think sadly a lot of people have a connection to it these days. So anything that I can do, and I'm, again, very proud of, I've had people come up to me and say, you encouraged me to chat to a friend about it, or you encouraged me to reach out to a counsellor. Like, I take real value in that, and I can use my social media platform for that. I can use Sunrise. Sunrise have been great with supporting me on that. So yeah, mental health is a really big one for me. As we know, after COVID, it's more important than ever, and I feel that things are improving. I really feel that men are more open and more. You're not going to get mocked as much as, say, 10 years ago for saying, look, I'm going through a really tough time, or breaking down and crying. It's okay.
It's funny. We never actually, I don't know if we actually got mocked, but we felt as though we were going to get mocked.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it depends on your friendship group.
It felt like it was, you were offering weakness to whoever your group was, when in fact, in hindsight, if anyone ever said it to me, that they weren't feeling great, and there was something wrong, I would not have thought of that as weakness. I would have just thought, well, shit, what can I do to help?
Yes.
But there would have been a sense of, particularly when I was growing up, there was a sense of, there's a weakness in this.
That's right.
Like you're offering up your vulnerability. I think Are You OK Day is just a wonderful. For a start, it's a great acronym. Are You OK? I mean, that's just fantastic. But it gives people an opportunity or permission, A, to ask it, but B, to say they're not.
That's right. And
we just need permission.
Yes. And there's some people who will say, oh, it's only one day of the year, it should be every day. It is every day. But that one day is the annual reminder to keep it top of mind. Now, I wear that because it reminds me every day. It's a nice little visual cue, but I remember anyway, it's so ingrained in me now. But it reminds me to be alert to people's mental health around me, whether it's a workmate, whether it's my partner, whether it's my family, friends, random person that I meet at a sunrise weather segment. It reminds me to be in tune with people's mental health, but also myself. It reminds me to keep a check-in on myself and, how am I going? Or have I got too much on my plate at the moment? Do I need to rejig things?
I was going to ask you about that. You've got a lot on your plate. I mean, you do a lot. I mean, you've got all these various foundations you try to look after, you help out. You got your mad life in terms of work. It's mad in terms of just the rhythm of it. I think your brain is going at 1,000 miles an hour anyway. in whatever you're doing, whether it's, as you just said, if you're home, you're on the floor with Margot, then there, of course, is your partner, her mother, who you got to spend time, want to spend time with too. It's necessary. Then there's your parents who are sort of sitting there wondering why you didn't visit them when you went to Adelaide. And there's your sister. Yep. And then there's probably others, a broader circle of friends. You got to have friends.
Yeah.
You got to have a couple of mates.
Absolutely.
You got to have someone to have a beer with. There's probably do you follow a footy club?
Adelaide Crows.
No, I mean soccer and
Manchester United or Adelaide United.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to watch the games.
Yeah.
And you got to do your research. You find out what's going on. You got to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's a fairly busy life. Do you ever sort of check in every now and then and sort of say, hang on, let's just pull up here for a minute and let's think about it. Like, let's say no to something?
Yeah, that's an area that I have to improve in. I feel like I'm getting better at it. I feel like fatherhood has helped me get stronger with that.
Are you talking about prioritization?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the same for you, but it's amazing how fast you can answer a question or a prospect when you've just become a new parent. Because if someone says, oh, can you come to Canberra and host this event on Saturday, the blah, 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 I already know the answer is no. Because that Saturday is the day that I want to spend the full day and put Margot to sleep and have that time at home. Of course, there's exceptions. You need to do some extracurricular bits and pieces, but it's amazing how quick I know now whether it's a yes or a no.
How did you work that out? Because, I mean, I still struggle with it. So, I got called pretty late last night. Could I do a segment on Channel 9 at 7:10? I thought, do I feel like doing it?
Well, you were saying you prefer doing Channel 7 as well.
Channel 9 is listening. No, I actually like both stations. I mean, and they're both great crews.
What have you got against Channel 10?
Well, they never asked me to do anything.
Studio 10, come on.
I don't even
Mr.
know where
Bouris.
it is. I actually do know where it is. But I thought about, do I really feel like doing it? And I said yes. And I had to get up at 6 o'clock. Couldn't go to I had to leave home at 6 o'clock. Couldn't go to the gym. Had to be there at 7:15 because they'd like to put makeup on me. Although this morning I didn't get any makeup because I got there late because there was traffic.
Is that why there's dim lighting today?
Totally. There's always dim lighting in here. Don't worry, there's always. The only person ever asked makeup in here was Rabs. Ray Warren. Rabs asked for makeup. But I still struggle with saying no. I feel an obligation if it's to talk about interest rates. I feel as though there's an audience out there who just don't know and they're anxious. And I
must say on that, I feel that I want to say thank you because I'm probably one of those people. And as soon as there's an interest rate announcement, your Instagram is the first place that I'll look.
Oh, thank you.
So no, genuine thank you for that.
Well, by the way, I might not get it right, but at least I think people just want an opinion, like from someone who's been around a long time, which one thing I can say, I've been around a long time and I've been through all the ups and downs. And so I felt as though I feel an obligation. And again, it goes back to sort of my upbringing. There's an expectation mark that you need to turn up. And that prioritization process probably hasn't quite worked for me just yet. Even now, I'm still trying to work it through. But it's interesting for a person of your age, a young person, relatively speaking to me, has already worked it out. And it's more, I think it's more your cohort of people, your age group, that is, in terms of cohort, are much more aware of prioritizing your lives. What's important? And what are the top 5 things I can do?
Yeah. I mean, becoming a dad helped crystallize that for me because...
But it didn't for me.
Yeah, interesting. I guess you were saying it was a different era then when it was kind of common that mum would look after, you would continue to work, and that's just the way things were back then. These days, it's not. I mean, sometimes it's like that for some couples. And again, it's no judgment, whatever works for your family, whatever happens under your roof, and that's fair enough. But for us, I don't want my partner to have to bear the brunt of all the nappy changes, and I don't want that. Like, even if it was an option for me, I wouldn't take that.
If I could take it back, I would. Honestly, I would. If I could be you, that's me 30 odd years ago, I would definitely be different.
Yeah.
I would happily lay there and get pissed on by my sons when you take the nappy off.
That's the bit they're going to use in the promo for this episode.
Yeah. Or those horrible nappies sometimes it happens.
Oh, but I think they're called punamis.
They're terrible. They are like, it is like it's just a shocker. And I used to think to myself, well, I'm glad their mum used to tell me about these terrible events, and I was thinking, thank God I don't have to do that. And but I probably would happily do it today.
Yeah, well, I feel that it was a quick education for me, and I feel that in that first 6 months, as any new parent will know, it is a bit of a blur. I feel like this is the timeline for me. The first couple of months, adrenaline, you're just so over the moon, ecstatic, on cloud 9 because you've got a happy, healthy baby. Yeah. So nothing else matters. Yeah. You forget everything else. It's just like you're in the bubble, right? Then at around the 3-4 months mark, it starts to kick in. It gets a bit hard. You've had that few months of not much sleep.
Sleep deprivation.
Yeah, reality kicks in and you're like, oh yeah, this is forever, right? But from a dad's perspective, I found it really challenging to connect with Margot because she's, literally joined at the boob to mum a lot of the time. And mum doesn't really have much time for dad all of a sudden because it's just focused, rightfully so, on baby. But then I had this thing that happened to me at around 4 months where I realized I just needed to view it through a different lens. And that is every single thing that Beck is doing for Margot, that, organising that food for her, going to buy her clothes, all of these things, cleaning up after this, planning that, getting this organised for tomorrow, the washing, all of these things that she's showing that love to Margot is actually by default and in turn showing love to me because this is our daughter. And I'll be able to pick up the load and I'll be able to show this in different ways. At the moment, it's through work and it's through, financially us being able to afford our home. But as time goes on, I'll take some of those roles to free her up to do bits and pieces away from that. And again, going to the timeline thing, once we got her sleeping correctly and sleeping well through the night at around the 7 or 8 month mark, and this could change tomorrow, but at the moment it's in a good sleep pattern, we suddenly had time to sit down together and have a glass of wine at 6:30, to have dinner together, to have a chat. And it just was a monumental change. So I think a lot of dads will relate to this. That first 6 months, the best you can hope for is being best supporting actress, right? You're not the main event. You're a sous chef. You're trying to help wherever you can, but you are not the main event. And it's not about you. It's about mum and bub bonding and, getting through that tough time. But then also the personality starts to emerge from the baby, in my experience, around the sort of 7 month, 8 month, where she starts laughing, she starts pointing, she starts making sounds, almost saying words, saying dad was her first word,
Really?
Which is a cruel injustice that I'm sure a lot of mums have experienced.
It's easier to say than mum. Oh, maybe.
Well, it's because I read about it. It's because they hear it the most, because mum's always saying, dad's going to be home soon. Dad's going to do this. Where's dad? Oh, dad should have done this. Dad's an idiot. They hear dad all the time, right? So, which I love. So now Beck's trying to get her to say mum, still hasn't said it. One day she'll say it, maybe by her 21st.
I can see another book coming, Weatherman Dad.
Yeah. Well, better than accidental dad.
Yeah, Weatherman Dad.
Yeah, so that's how I look at it in our first year.
So I just move off just quickly move away from Sam the dad, Sam the weather presenter. Sam, I just want to talk about just one example when you have done some crazy stuff. You've bungee jumped, which is something I've never done. I just won't trust the rope or whatever the hell it is. You've swum with sharks.
Yeah.
You got your cat on the cover of Puss Week magazine. It's made up, I don't know. Stripped naked for the real Full Monty.
Yeah.
Recorded a song with the Wiggles.
Yep.
That's one for that's fun for the ages.
Absolutely.
All of these things are about how Sam connects with people, the things you're prepared to do, I should say, to build a common denominator between you and the people that you're trying to connect with at the time. Is there anything you wouldn't do? I mean, do you actually think about doing these things or decide or agree to do these things without a thought? In other words, stuff it. I will bungee jump because that's my deal. That's how I've got to perform. That's how I'm going to connect. I'm going to do it anyway. I don't care. Or were you terrified?
I absolutely hated it. And that was on my first day of the job.
No.
Yeah. So the producer called me the week before and said, is there anything you won't do? And I said, I hadn't really thought about this. They said, I'll call you back in an hour, have a think about it. So I'm Googling most extreme activities you can do, blah, blah, blah. And I foolishly called him back and said, yep, there's only one that comes to mind. I won't skydive. So in his mind, he's like, great, bungee jump.
Well, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it is different. Still, I think almost as traumatic. So yeah, that was a horrible experience. I would not recommend it. I had the exact same thoughts as you. What if it snaps? And thankfully it didn't. But it made good TV because people like seeing people in fear. You know,
totally.
It's engaging.
Were you fearful that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't hide it. I was squealing like a child. I hated it. But, you know, getting naked on stage for the real full Monty, that was a different level of trauma. Similar.
Do you actually have something to cover you up? I mean, you put your hand in front of you?
We agreed, the group of us agreed 3 seconds of nudity before we put the hands in.
On TV?
Well, they didn't show that. They showed from the behind angle.
Okay.
Luckily, I've got a great butt.
By your own admission, yeah.
But that was equally scary. I mean, you know, like they took people's phones off them before they went in. It was at the Enmore Theatre in front of 1,000 people, then obviously going to a national TV audience. And I was like, well, what if someone snuck their phone in? Like they're going to see it all. And there's firecrackers going off and there's crazy lighting. And we did it. And we had like, you know, spray tans and red Diamante encrusted G-strings. It was like, I feel gross about it. It's traumatic thinking about it. But it's another life experience and it made people happy. And I like to think whenever I do these types of things, there's some sort of layer or level behind it. So whether it's getting a cat tattoo or taking Coco to the Logies, like that's animal rescue to me. That one was to encourage men to get checked for prostate cancer. And that was a really nicely threaded theme throughout the episode. So it's like, if we can take our gear off in front of the nation, you can take your gear off in front of the doctor behind closed doors. And I thought that was a really clever way of doing it. And again, after I had a lot of amazing pieces of feedback from people saying, we watched with my dad. He hasn't been to the doctor for 4 years, but after watching that, we had a good laugh and he's agreed to book in. He's going to the doctor in 2 weeks. Like, great, that's a win. So I like to think that, yes, I'll play the fool. Yes, I'll get the gear off. I'll bungee jump, whatever. But most of the time, there's some sort of reason or purpose to it. And sometimes it's just the purpose is to make people laugh or smile or roll their eyes. I'll take an eye roll any day.
But I was going to say, that's a good purpose, though.
I think so.
A quick laugh, or a quick smile, or a roll of the eyes, whatever the case may be, or something to talk about later in the day, or just have a giggle out with whoever you're watching it with.
Escapism.
That is so important today. I think it's more important today, post-COVID in particular, than of any time in the 68 years I've been living on this planet. It is become critical because everything's so serious. We take ourselves so seriously. And I rue the day that if we ever lose the sort of segments that you and others put on television and or radio, I rue the day that those things disappear, those segments disappear. And we still see in radio, obviously numbers are dropping in all those categories because it's being diluted by all the other things you've got to compete with.
Yep.
And by just naturally, mathematically, you're going to lose your numbers. But people still need to have that, Sam. And that is a really big deal for me in what we need as a society. It's too easy to get caught up in tech and change and being on top of the news as it's burning and, making decisions about how I can take advantage of this or take advantage of that or criticize this person because there's something I want to get an advantage out of. What you do is critical to us. So, Sam Mack, thanks very much.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. I love the podcast, mate.